patient has been admitted after a very long journey from Yellowknife, Northwest Territories. Its name, Nashville Deluxe Telecaster. Place of birth, Mexico. Date of birth, 1998. The patient presents with extensive fret wear and shortness of notes. We'll check the vitals. Here in the Luthery Trauma Center we use the acronym ARNS, which stands for Action, which is it's about 5/64 over about 4/64. R stands for relief in the neck. We have approximately 9 thousandths, which is good. N is nut slotting depth, and there is sufficient, especially over these worn areas. Finally, S is for saddle height, and it looks okay until we reach the high E, which seems to have collapsed. And finally, S stands for saddle height, which seems okay until we reach the high E, which is totally collapsed. We may have to establish an airway for that string to breathe. So for an otherwise healthy 27-year-old Telecaster like this, what treatment is indicated? Refret, setup, possible peritoneal lavage. A made in Mexico Telecaster from the 90s. I used to have one in my salad days, and it was the bee's knees. The fret wear on this is pretty advanced, and well, winters in the Northwest Territories can be a little inclement. It regularly reaches -40 there. -40 is a great number because it's -40 in both Celsius and Fahrenheit. It's just cold. As you can imagine, things get freeze-dried, and fret sprout is probably a perpetual problem, but these are particularly bad. So we got to make sure we dress those really tight when we do the refret. And I'm not going to belabor this too much because I've done quite a lot of refrets in the last few weeks, and I don't want you guys to get bored. But we'll plow through. Need to establish which frets this has on it, and I imagine this is the Fender Jumbo, which is about 103 thousandths, thereabouts, by probably around 45 thousandths tall. Hooray, yes. So that's what we're going to put back in. Before I take the strings off, I'm also going to check the state of the fretboard, which can differ from the fret tops, of course. And this seems to be less bowed than the fret tops. That's about 3 thousandths relief right on the wood, which is good. I'm just taking the strings out, and under the comforting glow of the biohazard symbol, I note that we have a ferrule there, which is not like the others, and should probably be reinstalled with a little bit of glue. Not that it's likely to go missing, but you never know. Just the tiniest little bit of gel super glue. Boop. Hold in place. There's a substantial amount of wear on both the B and the G strings, all the way up and down the board. Number 11 scalpel here being used for light incisions going from medial to lateral, or is it proximal to distal? Hard to tell. Anyway, it's cutting. Rather than cauterizing, this is used to basically gellify any purulent material that's stuck under the fret wire. I guess the closest medical term for this would be exodontia, which is pulling teeth. I'm debriding the surface of the rosewood, removing damage, and also any sebaceous film left over from ambitious fingers. I'll reestablish the slot depth using what is not unlike the Satterley bone saw used in amputations. Of course, we don't take it that far in this case. We'll check this fret wire's patellar reflex response with a hammer. Oh no, it doesn't bounce back. Possible neurological or spinal issues. We'll clip off excess fret wire length. I'll angle the fret ends. We'll level them with a leveling beam. Re-establish crown. I tried to find a cool medical term for polishing, but all I came up with was polishing. So polishing, polishing, polishing. Shiny skin is known as trophic change, which is a form of atrophy. I don't think that fits here. Now we're getting into the realm of an esthetician or possibly a podiatrist. I don't know. I'm hoping that by dressing these fret ends in April, it'll be sufficient so that they won't be sticking out way too far come January next year. I'll rebalance the legs on the E-string saddle. And the patient is ready to be discharged after one last test. Now this one here might qualify for chiropractic care. It's got a bad neck, lots of subluxations. To be honest, this is one I'm not even sure is repairable. For most of these videos I have some inkling, right? And yes, in the past I've shown that virtually anything is fixable, even the worst basket cases, by going to ridiculous lengths. That doesn't mean it's economically feasible or the right course of action all the time. So this is a Les Paul Deluxe from, I believe, 1976. It's got all the cool 70s features. You have the pancake body here. It's made up of two thinner pieces of mahogany, laminated face to face. It's got the volute, so the headstock can't possibly break. I have repaired more than 20 such headstocks that have broken. It's got the multi-laminated neck, in this case from maple, which is a real mid-70s thing. I quite like them. As it's the deluxe, it's got mini buckers. It's also finished natural. So much more healthy for you. I have no problem with any of that. It's also very heavy, of course, but that's a hallmark of Les Paul design. Now this was a working, giggable instrument in the 1980s, at least, but at some point the neck did a funny. The neck on this thing is twisted to a degree that is almost unbelievable. Or it appears that way. I mean, it's a 4F, it's got to stay home. The owner tried things like reverse stringing it, like a lefty guitar with heavy strings on the treble side, and try to kind of balance it out and maybe force it back into working order. I looked at this for about 30 seconds and said, you're going to have to leave it with me and I'm going to do some experiments and we'll figure out if it's even possible. This is a question I get asked with some frequency. How do you fix a twisted neck? And the answer, well, it varies, of course, but in most cases it involves a refret. I'll set the thing up, I'll use the neck jig to try and maintain the geometry as much as possible, shimming it one way or the other. Then I'll dress the fretboard back to some semblance of level, put in some good tall frets, because often it's going to move in funny ways when you restring it, even though it was in the jig. Then I'll dress those frets level, and it might not be perfect, but it will usually be playable. So the refret is necessary because usually these guitars have quite low wide frets. So they'll be about 104 thousandths wide by, in this case, 26 thousandths tall. There's no room here to dress off the top of these frets. They're about as low as I would ever want to take them. The other thing that adds complexity, though, is fancy inlays. They could be pearl, or in this case pearloid, but they'd have to be removed because leveling the fretboard will usually sand right through a portion of their entire thickness, which doesn't look good. So you got to very carefully remove these things, do the leveling, re-establish the correct depth, and re-inlay them, which just adds a whole bunch of money to the job. In this case, though, I'm wondering how bad this neck really is. because there might also be a bit of an optical illusion happening. The base side of this nut seems quite high, and I think it slants fairly dramatically over towards the treble side. And just looking at the clearance over the first fret, there's extra height there. And as it's set up, it looks to me like the bridge might be slanting in the opposite direction. It's just like the old Santa Cruz mystery spot. There might be a straight line between those 2 points that is just fine. Sometimes you're not the thing that's leaning, right? And I also noted that there is quite an abundance of relief in this neck. Way more than is necessary. A lot can change when we adjust the truss rod. So I'm going to put on a full set of strings. We're going to see what happens. The reason I don't like nubs, ladies and gentlemen, is the Gibson tradition of installing the binding over the ends of the frets and then dressing it down to leave a little bit of material right at the edge here. See in the first position, that string goes down right on the slope, you know. I'm not a fan. I mean, there are certain people, dealers especially, there are a couple of vintage dealers who go on and on about it, how much more comfortable they are to play. I don't get that. Let's see what we're starting with. Action is almost 7/64 on the bass side and 6 on the treble. Too high. Neck relief. The thickest feeler gauge is too small. This is 25 thousandths. I'm guessing it's around 26, 27 thousandths. Too much. We must immediately attempt to adjust the truss rod. PK. Okay, there is some tightness. There's still a ways to go. We'll go and crank this quite a lot. That's half a turn. 14 thousandths. Okay, the action is now dreamy. It's around 4/64, both bass and treble. And straightening the neck has stretched all the strings, increasing the string length, so everything is sharp now. Which is kind of what I mean when I say that having excess relief can cause real tuning issues, because it eats up a certain amount of the compensated string length. So excessive bow is not good for your tuning. I'm not having too difficult a time playing this thing. It's not excessively buzzy. However, I can tell, and it is being borne out with my measurements, that the bridge has collapsed quite a bit on this one. We're down less than 3/64 on the inner strings, where the outer ones are 4/64. So we might have to rebend the bridge. Alright, it's been 24 hours. The neck relief remains the same. The geometry is okay. Nothing scary occurred. And yes, there is still some twist to the neck, but it doesn't really affect things in a way that makes it unplayable. Like I said, the biggest issue I have is with that sunken bridge. You know, these middle strings are too close to the frets where the outside ones are just where I want them. So we can fix that. This thing is going to be in better shape than most 1970s Les Pauls I come up against. So the bridge is a little bit dirty. In former times I would probably go at this with soap, water, and an old toothbrush, but I have acquired one of those high-frequency jewelry cleaning devices. So let's see if we can use that to get some of this grunge loose. Make it sparkle before we try and straighten it out. This is just water and a little bit of Dawn dishwashing soap, and I'll set that for 5 minutes. See what happens. Well, the soup is slightly unappetizing, but it seems to have worked. I want to dry it off pretty well. I'm quite happy with this device. This is some Bow Shield T9, which is my favorite lubricant slash rust protectant. So I put some on the screws. You can see the dip that's developed over the years. Oh, these are just stuck on with magnets. You know what? I forgot to hit record. But as luck would have it, I've got this footage from a previous guitar. This little device just clamps into my vise and pushes on the underside of the bridge, straightening it out. I'm going to clean this nut up a little bit. It's ugly. There were a number of localized inconsistencies and high frets. I made sure they were all seated, then did a little bit of leveling. I've mentioned it before, but on some of these old Gibsons with the extra low frets, there's a point where standard crowning files just won't work. They're too deep for the fret that's there, and they end up just running against the surface of the board, not accomplishing very much. And this is where the three-cornered file really does come into its own. You can work on frets as low as, say, 16, 17 thousandths tall, which is ridiculous, but you could do it. Having lowered the nut's profile overall, I'll refine the string's entry points. Well, I'm satisfied. This thing plays really well. You know, I'm not a fan of the super low frets, but it's a characteristic of these guitars. It's got an action of 4/64ths on the bass and just over 3 on the treble. That's lower than many people would consider proper, but it's what I can get out of it. So this wonderfully beige and brown and earth tone guitar can go about being useful. And I know this may actually frustrate some of you because it was too easy. I was expecting more of a battle, but think of the player. You know, he gets to pay about a third of what the high end of the estimate could have been. I'll keep my eye out for other twisted necks. You should understand, though, that most people recognize a truly twisted neck as a deal breaker, so they don't even seek out repair. And in some sense, they're right, because a neck that's prone to twisting might be inherently unstable. And having corrected it, there's no real guarantee that it won't continue to twist, especially as the repair usually involves removing more wood and possibly making it even less stiff. Then we get into other scenarios like taking the fretboard off and trying to add carbon fiber reinforcement. Those end up being pretty expensive propositions. Not for everybody. Not everyone has the money for that. But we got lucky this time. This, you know, for the cost of a setup and a little fret dressing, it's back in action. And it's great.